Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we assemble to explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our 6th season, we are looking at the Avengers. I'm Andy Nelson from the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network.
And I'm Pete Wright, and Thor and Loki clearly didn't get the no costumes in the park memo.
That's right. Today we are talking about minute 131, which begins with the final news montage and ends with the Tesseract where it belongs. Back on the show today, we have Bubbawheat. Hello, Bubbawheat.
Excelsior. It's good to be back.
For sure.
This is a fun minute to talk about. I suppose we may as well just ask. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but is there a particular reason why you wanted to pick this minute to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, I got in early enough that I was surprised, a little bit surprised that this hadn't been picked because, clearly it's the Stan Lee cameo, and coming from somebody, I've been doing a superhero blog, movie blog for over 10 years. I've seen literally every Marvel movie, even, the obscure buried ones. So
right.
I figured...
Even Man-Thing.
Yes. So I figured, I like to call myself a superhero movie expert. So, I've got to get in on the Stan Lee cameo.
That's awesome. Well, it's a fun little bit here. We're coming in on this news montage that we started talking about in Friday's minute, where we've seen these news all these different feeds. We're looking at a couple screens in this dark room on the helicarrier where Fury meets with the World Security Council. He's got like 4 different screens on each of his screens, of which he has multiple, and we're just kind of slowly panning across them, and we're getting, it's a fun kind of creative way to do a montage as opposed to just having one channel that's kind of flipping. We're seeing the way that it's going, we're seeing a lot of feeds playing over the course of this entire bit. In the scope of closure, as far as, we've had our heroes, we've kind of seen all of that with them and the whole bit with Tony waking up, wanting to go get shawarma, and now we're kind of taking a break from that, and we're getting this. Like, in the scope of, closure from this big Battle of New York, do you like the way it plays? How does it feel for you?
I think it works pretty well. In my memory, thinking back about this, I feel like the 2 movies that get compared a lot that came out about this time was this and Man of Steel. And I for some reason, in my memory, I was thinking that Man of Steel came first, but Man of Steel was actually a year later. But Man of Steel was always criticized with all its, massive destruction in the city. And the Avengers had just as much destruction, but it has these kind of moments, and it has these extra moments like within the battle of the heroes stopping to take care of the civilians that I think Man of Steel lacks. And that's why, or at least part of the reason why the Avengers is held up as, that it doesn't get that harsh criticism against all the destruction, even though they probably have a very comparable amount of destruction looking at them side by side.
It's destruction with heart. Wink.
Well, and maybe they took the cue from the I don't know, the potential backlash of it, which is why they give you all of that from Bruce Wayne's perspective when it comes to Batman versus Superman a few years afterward. Maybe that's why they kind of took that approach. Regardless, we're not here to talk about that franchise. But to your point, it is an interesting thing because we certainly over the course of this whole battle have been talking about the scope of having a big battle sequence like this in New York City, which is, just, a little over a decade after September 11th. And the idea of blowing up buildings and granted they're big Leviathan, but the idea of this battle taking place in the city and kind of, is there, how does that play? And it's interesting because the conversations really do seem to favor it feeling a little more, what would the right way to phrase it be? But just kind of like, it feels like there's still kind of this New York strong vibe running through it. And it doesn't feel like they're doing it because they want to do September 11th their own way. You know, it feels different enough where it just doesn't even seem like the same sort of scope in some capacity.
It's a little bit like what they do with the Spider-Man movies, but not quite that blatant. Where the first, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies all had, well, and even like especially the first Andrew Garfield, all had the scene of, New Yorkers coming together to help him out. And this one, we don't get that far, but we do at least get the New Yorkers' perspective in this montage.
Yeah, right. Well, let's talk about some of these news feeds. This is our last chance to see. We come in right on the end of Sean Lynn's final line, "I love you, Thor," which we kind of chopped in half of the word Thor from last minute to this minute. So our last chance to see her. Last bit of the guy shaving to look like Tony. And then one of the screens cuts to a lady sweeping out the front of her place and hanging up an open sign. Part of me was really hoping that was the Shawarma Palace lady that we'll see later. I was like, oh, is that Shawarma Palace? Are they opening up? But no, it is a totally different lady. But I did have a little glimmer of hope there.
I do have to say that goatee looks awful.
It is one of those really heavy goatees that I was like, it's either he's just somebody who had a really heavy beard and they didn't trim the goatee yet, it's just a really thick goatee, or it's just a terrible, I don't know, would you call it a wig? Whatever you call it, just like the fake facial hair that they'd put on.
Ooh, like a face wig, a chin wig. Is that what you're saying?
I know there's a word like...
There exists a term...
Well, they have fake mustaches. I don't know. It's just like the goatee that you glue on.
Yeah, bad news. Yeah, it does. Who is that guy? Do we know who that guy is? I looked for him and I couldn't find him.
No, just some
you think it's just
person.
Some guy? I thought that might have been some sort of Easter eggy type casting. He looks so familiar.
He, along with a couple of the other shots that I don't know so much him, but some of these other shots, they definitely are trying to give us a sense that there's a global feel to everything. Like, we have, like later we'll have the Tony mural that's painted on a wall that is, clearly in a different country. It's got a different language written on the wall behind him. And so the idea that, sure, these heroes may have been here saving New York, but they're kind of recognized as global heroes.
Yes, right. But just like in the frame immediately above him is we've already talked about the actress who played Carol in Glee, sticking her head in and screaming that thing. Like this is, I'm kind of on the lookout for those kinds of actors. Like who are the cameo people, and they're hard to find.
Well, yeah, they're tough, but I mean, like people like her, because they're saying lines and stuff, they end up getting credited.
Get a credit,
whereas
right.
The guy who's getting a shave doesn't get in the credits. It is what it is. It's always tough finding those people unless they've gone in and added themselves to the IMDb credits. Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, these type of scenes, they always feel like they were the result of like some contest. Where, for fans,
right.
We wanted Avengers fans to your chance to be in the movie. And then you end up in a scene like this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know they've done things like that with some other films where they have included actual fan footage in the films to show or to kind of help create this vibe, This, I feel, may have been a little before they were really doing that sort of stuff. But it is fun to see. Like, I mean, the guy getting the Captain America shield tattoo on his arm, like that just feels like it could have just been someone filming. Like, who knows? I mean, I don't know if they went out and filmed this. For all we know, they were scouring YouTube and finding clips of anyone who is a Marvel fan who was doing something like that. And, reaching out to the people to see if they could license the footage to put it in here,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's entirely possible. We do have, before we jump into some of the specific people, just some new news feeds. We have C-SPAN 2, Senate calls emergency session. Another C-SPAN 2, invasion, a global catastrophe, with Press Secretary Jay Carney. We have Channel 6, Avengers assemble to save New York City. That's the one with the kid who's doing his whole little imitation of everything. We have MSNBC breaking news: victims of New York attacks respond. And this is where the couple is worried about who's going to keep these heroes in check. We have New York 1, the Avengers hoax. Channel 5, Albany, New York senator questions the Avengers. This is with the Democratic New York Senator Boynton. And then we have live CNN breaking news: New York crisis disaster averted. Avengers, friend or foe. There are also a number of other feeds that don't have any branding on them as far as news channels. So, but yeah, let's. So we've got a few people here, and I love the IMDb game, and I love doing it with people like these who are nigh impossible to identify. Last time we had our first of our celebration montage interviewees. This time, our next one is this kid. This very excited kid, played by Michael Zhang. Any idea what Michael Zhang would have as his IMDb known for? I'll tell you, he's been in 7 films.
I think one of those films is Screw You, Andy, This Is Miserable. Is that one of his credits?
Well, what's interesting? I'll just tell you both because it is pretty tricky. He was a child actor from 2012 to 2016. He was in 7 films. This is certainly the biggest. Of the 4, though, 3 of them are his performances. The Avengers, one called The Bandit Hound, and another called Displacement. But then he clearly has decided to go to film school, I would assume, because in 2020, he was a script supervisor on 2 short films. One of those is the 4th in his known for. It's called Cold Hard Blood. And then he also has edited a short film in 2021. So I don't know. Maybe he's going to be somebody that we'll see further down the road in more film projects. But that's Michael Zhang.
That's really funny. Okay, well, I didn't have him.
Oh, and it also looks like he was doing stand-up comedy for a while.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, everybody's got to cut their chops before they do script supervising work.
That's right. Next up, we have the African-American couple. The man, William Christopher Stevens. He is the first of our 2 here. Any idea with his face, does he look familiar at all to you?
I'm going to go for the Avengers as one of them.
No, not to me.
It's tough, I know. He has 52 credits, quite a lot of them. It's just straight up voice work in doing English dubs of anime films. He's done a lot of video game work. The 4 known fors for him actually include also, like our last one, he's been doing some other stuff in visual effects and also motion capture and ADR. So his 4 known fors are The Guardian, film that he did production support on with a Furious FX company. Kong Skull Island, actually, where he worked in the ADR on that film. The Avengers, as you said, and, Pete, this is something we've covered over on the next reel, Underworld Evolution.
He was not in it. He was effects.
He worked on effects again for Underworld Evolution.
Fantastic. Well, yeah. you can really tell.
It's right there in his face.
Every minute of his work you can find it on screen for sure.
That's right. His wife is played by Kelly Robbins Hicks. Kelly has 6 producer credits on her IMDb page, along with 12 acting credits and 3 writing credits. Her 4 known fors are as a producer on the TV series Random Acts of Flyness, on which she's an executive producer, an actress, and a writer, so very involved in that show.
That's weird that she totally stole one of my spec scripts. I might have written that. Random Acts of Flyness. It's right in my wheelhouse.
Totally right in your wheelhouse. She was an associate producer on How to Tell You're a Douchebag.
Oh, that
was she was a producer on Queen of Glory and The Avengers. Those are her 4 known fors.
Wow. All right.
We have our Senator Boynton, played by James Eckhouse.
This one I got.
You do?
Well, okay. No, I don't. But I mean, I know him, but IMDb doesn't do TV. And I absolutely know him from one show and a lot of cameos. I know him when I see his face, but the one show that I absolutely 100% know, James Eckhouse was Mr. Walsh from Beverly Hills 90210. He was in like every episode.
Jim Walsh, and then also Dr. Edwards. You're right. 146 episodes.
There we go.
He was
there we go.
Wow.
I don't know
call.
anything else.
I didn't know you were a 90210 head.
I regret that I unintentionally outed myself.
Yeah, you sure did.
This is a 90210 head.
Yeah. 146 episodes, though. You are right about that. I mean, he is somebody who, like, looking through his IMDb, I'm like, this is a person who is in everything. You talk about like that guy. He is that guy. He's been acting since 1982, and he is his 130 credits. The 4 IMDb known for is. Are you gonna say Beverly Hills 90210 or no?
No, because they don't do TV. So
they
I know
do TV. What are you talking about? We just had TV in our last few.
Oh, well, I don't listen. I don't listen to most of what you say on these things. Okay, I'm going to say 90210. I'm going to say the Avengers, because that to me seems like the biggest thing that he's a part of is this. I'm going to say, you want to give me a hint? Can you give us a hint?
I don't know.
No.
No.
God.
Bubbawheat, do you have any idea with him?
No, I have no idea. I was not a 90210, so I don't even have that.
Let me guess. Was he an attorney, a physician, or a middle manager?
I think that you're probably right on a lot of those counts. In fact, one of these, maybe this is why he's somewhat familiar to me. You know, I'm a big Tom Hanks fan. He was his supervisor in Big.
He totally was. Nice.
He also was Ned Sneller in Junior. That's the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger getting pregnant. And he was in Guess Who? That was the remake with, I can't remember who the cast was, but it was the remake of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And Flip-Flopping Races. And then he's in the Avengers.
Was that Bernie Mac?
Oh, yeah. Bernie Mac and Ashton Kutcher. That's who it was.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Yeah. That's a win. What's his IMDb rating? I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't know. While we're here, let's just do Stan Lee. I know we've done it in the past. I'm always curious if it changes. Not that I remember, but of the films that you know he's been a part of, what would you say are his known fors?
Where do you even start?
I know, It's hard. I mean, you may as well just throw out 4 random things from the MCU.
I mean, I feel like his biggest role was Mallrats.
Which, unfortunately, is not one of his known fors.
I know his best... I feel like his best cameo was The Amazing Spider-Man. The one with him and the library.
Cleaning crew? Or he's the cleaning guy with everyone the stuff going on behind him?
Yeah.
You know what I would call out as one of my favorites of his, which isn't actually a film in the MCU, but it's Big Hero 6, when he pops up and kind of like the surprise as the one kid's dad, and they have that whole thing about how they wear their underwear, which just made me laugh to no end. I loved that little bit from him in that one.
Oh, man. When did he died in, when did he die? 2017? 18. He died in 2018. So, okay, I'm just going to throw out the Avengers, and I'm going to throw out, I don't know, Black Panther. Those are my 2.
Let's see. I know, actually, I feel like his best ones were like in the Spider-Man movies, because he also had a fantastic one in, Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, that would be my second favorite little cameo bit of his. Like those. Yeah, he's got some good ones. And then he shows up randomly in things like Teen Titans Go to the Movies, which is very funny. You know,
is that
something like that?
That's not one of his top 4, please.
It's not, but it's funny that he, did show up in that.
Yeah, that was another fantastic one.
Yeah, right. Like sometimes those ones I actually enjoy more than the ones that he's in the MCU, because the MCU ones is like, yeah, it's cute, it's fun. Like in Captain America, like last season, it's like, okay, yeah, I thought he'd be taller. Okay, yeah, that's very Stan Lee. It's kind of fun, but there's something about the ones that are a little more unexpected that I actually find myself enjoying that much more.
I'm almost a little bit surprised that they haven't used any more of them, because the way that they talk, it seems like they they filmed a lot of extra ones, and they'll film like several of them in a row, but not really know what movies they were going for. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had ones that they've filmed that haven't found their way into any movie.
That's possible, but I wonder how tied in they are, because like there was another one for this film that was in one of our deleted scenes earlier in the film when Steve Rogers was trying to make his way and with the modern world, and he's actually at the cafe and he has this cute little exchange with the waitress, and then she walks away and Stanley's at the next table and says, "Ask her for her number, you idiot." And I kind of like it better than this one because, I don't know, there was just something about kind of connecting it to the scene that worked more for me. But, you know, they cut the scene, so I'm assuming they chose to do this one instead.
The other one that I really like that maybe is off the mark, I think it's too obscure, but the one, which is the one where he's not driving the bus. I think that was the one where he's with Peter Parker. He's driving Peter Parker's bus. Was that like Endgame or Infinity War or something? And but it's the one where he's on a bus and he's reading the
Mallrats script.
the book.
Mallrats script.
He's reading the book, and he's I think it was Doctor Strange, because he's totally oblivious to everything going on outside the bus. But I remember that being kitschy and funny that he's
reading the Mallrats script.
Are you sure?
I mean, Bubbawheat, isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely one where he's on a bus reading the Mallrats script. I thought that was Captain Marvel.
Oh, maybe. Yes, because it was the 90s. You're right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think he's reading something much more heady and than the Mallrats script. No, actually, makes it even funnier. He was reading Aldous Huxley's The Doors of Perception during the big battle outside, which is funny. That's tongue-in-cheek funny. So I'm going to go with I'm not. It's too obscure. I don't think that's going to be it. I retract.
There's been so many of them. I actually have a hard time remembering what they are in all of them. The four known fors are at this point in time as we're recording are Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man: Homecoming, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Okay, so I got Black Panther. I should have stuck with Doctor Strange, and I can't believe Avengers isn't on there. Not because this is a great participation in the film. I think amongst the list of his cameos, this isn't a good one for me. It's not a very good one, but it just was such a sort of seminal movie.
Well, what was his Black Panther one? I'm forgetting.
He was in the Korean casino, and he takes T'Challa's chips.
Right.
He's in Busan.
Right.
I like that one.
And Doctor Strange, we just talked about. Spider-Man: Homecoming is.
That was the one where he's the
bus driver.
Yeah. I mean, he's getting in the way of the neighbors. He's like the neighbor Steve or something, and he thinks Spider-Man is like beating up civilians. He's like, "Don't make me come down there, you jerk." Does that ring any bells?
I don't remember that one.
Not the way you're doing it.
You guys, I'm doing it great.
What was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2?
Hold on. Here it is.
Was that the Watcher?
No, I think that was
the annoyed neighbor, Gary, who witnesses Spider-Man mistakenly accosting innocent civilians and says, "Don't make me come down there, you punk." Punk is where I lost you, I think. His other neighbor, Marjorie, greets him and asks about his welfare, where he does the same to her, asking about her mother. There you go.
Okay.
That's that
all
one.
right. There you go.
You may continue.
Well, that is Stan Lee in his cameo here. And I mean, it is fun to kind of see. So that's largely this group of last one I forgot. Pat Kiernan, the New York One news anchor. We actually hear his voice as we're kind of watching that final bit with the Avengers in Central Park. Do either of you, this is a tricky one because Pat Kiernan is one of those people who pops in as himself in a number of different news projects. We just had this last time with Thomas Roberts. Any sense for Pat Kiernan, or should I just tell you?
No, nothing for me.
His face is a face, but I just have to know, is he a face that we see in is he a regular reporter?
He plays himself in in all the movies. He's always a news anchor. He's always Pat Kiernan. And yes, in all of them, he plays Pat Kiernan. Or he's credited it as himself, yes.
But is it going out on a limb by saying all of his Pat Kiernan performances are Marvel movies?
That is going out on a limb. He's been in 40 projects, a lot of TV.
Okay, so that is incorrect.
Gossip Girl, Billions, Blue Bloods.
I would have said all of those. Dang it. Andy, Jesus.
Mr. Robot. I'll just tell you, but they are all Marvel, funny enough.
Oh.
Spider-Man, Far From Home, Doctor Strange, The Avengers, and Iron Man 3.
Okay, that's really funny.
Those are
Iron Man 3. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
So those are the new faces and voices that we hear in this montage. So let's talk a little bit about the stuff going on here. Any particular comments about any of the clips that we see over the course of this? Bubbawheat, anything? Do you want to start with Stan Lee? Should we start there with his little cameo? Do you like his cameo?
I mean, like you said, it's very quick. It's him playing chess. It's funny just because most of the characters that he created were the ones that I feel like, he's involved with making them in New York rather than in some fictional city.
So the fact that his line in this is superheroes in New York, give me a break.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny because it's false. It just is so, it's like so, it so diminishes the Stan Lee cameo by having him in a screen on a screen. That just feel like I get it. It's very sly. And in some respects, it's the most Easter eggy cameo of all of them. But I prefer it when he's loud and proud.
Well, all right. Any of the other ones that we want to talk about? I mean, we've got, the kid. There's an artist that is in there who's featuring a bunch of paintings that he's done of various superheroes, which look an awful lot like images from various comics.
I think it's worth noting that I feel like this Battle of New York did a lot for the Hulk's PR, because I believe that, within the MCU, he was viewed as more of a menace because of the destruction that he may have caused in his solo movie. But now he's got the Hulk equals hero sign and the little parade going on, and then the person with like the homemade Hulk mask.
Yeah, which is really funny because it's like a woman in a hijab who is doing that. So it's like it's just again to show it can be anybody who is kind of cheering these people on. This is kind of a global celebration. I like that little bit there.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, that's a good point, and it's funny because I do the other element that I actually like that we are getting with this is it's not completely just celebratory. We're actually painting a swath of perspective with these different people. Obviously, the kid is super excited, but then we cut to that husband and wife, and they're like, I don't feel safe with these things out there. It seems like there's a lot they're not telling us. We're getting different perspectives of there's the good and the bad. I mean, obviously, we've been following them as they save the city from all of this destruction and everything that's going on. And got rid of the Chitauri. But at the same time, I mean, look at all the holes in the buildings because of Hulk jumping and grabbing and smashing and everything else. And all the things that they have done, again, in the process of a battle. But there is a lot of damage, and these 6 individuals were right at the heart of it. So it's interesting how you can kind of see a perspective of that. And I like that they're giving us that perspective,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, balance is great, and the fact that as we cut to the next little breakaway, we see that their fight continues, even though they're mostly in civilian clothes. Like they are still, even as all these people are talking about them, this is them like not reading the comments. Like they're going about the fight. They're sending Loki away. They're disappearing to fight another day, and I think that's a good message from this minute for me.
Yeah, it plays well.
Yeah.
Is there a sense with watching this where we're seeing this Senator Boynton here where we kind of wish that it was Gary Shandling?
Yeah, I do feel like this is like the first hint of what ends up basically becoming like the Sokovia Accords.
Right. Yeah, we're kind of moving into that space, And now that I say that with Senator Stern, I guess the issue with that is that would have been pushing the Hydra side, and I suppose it's good to know that not all of the senators are necessarily Hydra agents. We actually have some politicians who aren't necessarily also Hydra. But
I guess that's a relief.
Yeah.
Although, really, again, hindsight, they were all Hydra anyway. They just didn't even know it.
They just didn't know it exactly. But yeah, there is that whole side of the Sokovia Accords, and you can see where things are going. And then, you get that coming in with, this is when Pat Kiernan's voice kicks in. The whole tough questions are being asked about the Avengers themselves. Their sudden appearance, their equally sudden disappearance. This idea that these people kind of come in and, it's kind of like, I feel like a lot of it you can shrink down to the perspective of our sergeant that we had, the police sergeant, who questions Captain America when he shows up and starts giving him orders. He's like, who the hell are you? And I feel like that's kind of the attitude. Like, why do you get to be the guy who comes in and fights for us? We didn't ask for this. And without realizing that, of course, these people are super beings. And so, of course, can't actually stop all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But you think about it, like in the terms of the general run-of-the-mill person. I mean, we're going to talk about Beth the waitress here, but still, like the bulk of people who witness this just through news footage and stuff, or let's be honest, everyone in New York just went to their windows and watched everything.
Yeah.
Nobody actually ran away. But the idea is, like, they're seeing this thing happen, but they don't know where these people came from. And from their perspective, they all could have been from outer space,
Yeah, I think that's the trick. Besides, like, right at this, like, now we're just seeing all the people in New York, but the number of people who are building opinions off of what they see based on the devastation is high. Like, it actually kind of surprises me that there isn't more of an anti-Avenger push in subsequent films because of how the media interprets this. Like, that would have been a more interesting angle to dive more deeply into, to my view, in subsequent films about just how damaging the Avengers could be. Like, it's something that DC, frankly, is, they corner the market on damage and just sort of dance across the idea of implications. And this is another movie that doesn't do that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And that does lead us to Beth the waitress, who finally has this big moment where she gets her interview. She's on the news. And again, this is kind of like the way that they've put this montage together. It ends up being kind of a call and response. You've got the excitement about them being heroes, the people cheering them on. Then you have the concern, and then you have the senator saying, where are they now? And then, tough questions. And then it comes to this head here with the waitress, and this lands and it closes this montage in a very personal way, where we have her talking about how Captain America saved her life, and she's saying thank you. And it's a really nice way to kind of take all of these different perspectives and everything and whittle it down to this one person who was right there and ended up being saved by this hero. And in the scope of, Bubbawheat, I don't know if you are as up on like all of the deleted scenes that included Beth the waitress. Have you seen all of that stuff?
No, I didn't follow up on that. I did, hear you talk about it on at least some of the episodes that have been released as of recording.
Well then, okay, so that's interesting then, since you haven't actually seen all of them. I mean, when you see this waitress come in and have this little line here, I mean, how does that play for you from what you've seen of her in the film, which was just a couple quick shots in the restaurant, and then the cafe, and then she ends up in the bank when Captain America comes in. I mean, from just those bits to this, I mean, do you feel like you're getting a good kind of journey with this character that you could identify with?
Yeah, I think that she, even in what we see in the movie, I feel like she definitely was set up as a face. Like, she was kind of a focal point in the brief shots that we got. She was definitely, like, in the crowd, she was set up to stand out as, this is an extra that we should pay attention to. And so I think I do like that we come back to her, and Like I know that the actress, it was bugging me for a long time, and I can't remember because I know that you already covered her IMDb credits, but I don't remember if you got the one that I actually remembered her for. Like I had to scroll all the way down to the bottom, but she was Chrissy Seaver in Growing Pains for the last 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That is crazy.
And I saw that and it's like, that is where I knew her from.
Oh my God, you're so right. That is unreal. That face is unmistakable under all that hair.
Mm-hmm.
Chrissy
And then I
Seaver.
also saw that just a couple years later, she was in like a one-season sitcom that I'm sure nobody will remember called Phenom. It was like she played the younger sister. It was like about a tennis prodigy.
Huh. Okay.
But yeah, like I saw
Wow.
those two, and so I was like, that's been bugging me for the longest time. And she's got a ton of credits, and it's like, oh, there it is, all the way back at the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's interesting.
Good pull.
And lots of projects that she's done. So, well, that's her. And it's our final bit with her in the film. I like the way that we close her out. Pete, any last thoughts on our closure with Beth the waitress?
My only thought to this whole thing is, as we've said all along, like if you're going to humanize the people of New York, Beth the waitress is a great way to do it. And there's just more story with Beth the waitress in this movie, and I think it's I part of me thinks it's just a little bit of a shame that it was cut. I see why, but I do think that there's Beth's story. Maybe Disney Plus gets a whole series.
And I think it's good that it ends on a positive note, even though it does have the caption, the Avengers friend or foe. But overall, this is a very, end with her saying thank you.
It plays nicely, and it's touching that it goes to, to that full screen story instead of like, she's one of 4 on the screen at that particular point. So,
right.
Well, let's chat a little bit about our what we cut to, and that this is, now we actually are in this room, and we find that it's the World Security Council talking to Nick Fury, and this is kind of this wrap up conversation that they are having about everything, trying to get a sense of, as we get to hear from Councilman number 2. We still don't know what his name is, but he says, "Where are the Avengers?" Fury is not tracking their whereabouts. He says, I'd say they've earned a leave of absence. And then we have Jenny Agutter popping in and the Tesseract. And Fury says the Tesseract is where it belongs. And we'll finish that tomorrow. What do you think of the World Security Council and kind of this vibe that they create for this group?
It really paints them as the villains. And I don't know if they had this, the whole Hydra plot in mind when doing this. They're all in shadow. They sent a nuke to New York City, and now they're just wanting to have control, like executive power over the Avengers, and Nick Fury's not having it.
It's an interesting thing that they are setting up where it is this real kind of this shadow organization, and it makes it seem like they're the puppet master of everything. I'm never quite sold on what they're trying to give us with the World Security Council in the films, and I'm always a little torn as to how they're trying to kind of structure it and kind of the position it has with S.H.I.E.L.D. and all the governments of the world and stuff, and I don't know if I'm ever quite satisfied.
They don't show up again, do they?
They'll be in Winter Soldier for sure, because we have, Jenny Agutter actually shows up in the room to talk to Robert Redford, and it turns out that it's, Nat wearing her Mission Impossible disguise. So,
yes.
But after that, I can't remember if we end up seeing them again. I feel like, I don't know, it kind of seems to be like once kind of everything fell apart at that point that they went away. Like, I can't remember if the World Security Council shows up again.
Yeah, I don't either. I can't believe that we can't think of that, because it feels so logical that they would have shown up again in Civil War, weren't they? Wasn't there some presentation of the World Security Council in Civil War? That's a thing.
I'm looking right now. Let's see. They're mentioned in Civil War and they are mentioned in Endgame, but the only films
But you're right.
in which the World Security Council is featured is the Avengers and Winter Soldier.
I get sideways on the movies because they do show up repeatedly in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, we get them in a couple of episodes, especially because Powers Booth is a regular. Or not a regular, he's a recurring.
Yeah, it's an interesting group. So, well, it is what it is. Last but not least, anything to say about our heroes? We see what they're doing. Pete, you've already mentioned this, but we see them coming together. They're at the Bethesda Terrace in Central Park, walking up with Loki he's got, cuffs, and he's got his little muffle on. I know we're going to probably talk more about this tomorrow when we spend a little more time with them. And then, of course, we got Eric, who invented his crazy little Tesseract tube, and then we get to see them do more with the Tesseract. Any little bit about any of this stuff? I mean, as far as what we're going to see here,
I think it's interesting that, you know, in the shot in the middle of the minutes, we can see, like, I guess, S.H.I.E.L.D. Secret Service members doing like a perimeter.
Yeah, like they're kind of keeping this area secure from the public or something. Yeah.
Because they'd see the costume play at work, and that's very disorienting for New Yorkers at this point.
Yeah, Thor really needs to put on his Donald Blake outfit at some point, just so he can walk around, so people don't.
Yep. That's exactly right.
That's right. All right. Well, let's wrap this minute up. Bubbawheat, it has been great chatting with you today and over the course of the season. Thank you so much for joining us all of these minutes and talking about the Avengers with us.
Yeah, no problem. There is one little background detail that I noticed on the screen. It says that it's like 12:30.
Yeah.
Does that time seem accurate based on the events of the movie? It feels like it should be much later in the day.
Well, the battle was very much a morning battle. Everybody woke up early and got to work.
The clock, we talked about very briefly, the clock that's on at Grand Central Terminal, it's like 11:15 in the morning. So,
yeah.
I mean, that means that this news report is only like an hour and a half after everything's happened. It seems like this needs, I mean, maybe it's meant to be days later, but to see like these sorts of parades and Senate hearings and all this sort of stuff happening, it seems like days have had to have passed for people to be celebrating at this level.
But it also seems like they wouldn't have kept Loki around for days later. Although, do we get a good look? Does he still seem banged up? Like, does he still have the fresh cuts?
Yeah, I think when we cut to his, I'm trying to scrub to where we see him. I'm going to have to go look at 132. I can't remember if we're seeing his face banged and battered.
Well, yes, we are. He does have a scrape on his forehead and one under his eye on his cheek. And he is also, don't forget, wearing the Dyson personal air purifier over his mouth. So,
yes,
very popular.
So that's, So again, why are they even going to Central Park for all this? Who knows? A lot of this just doesn't make a ton of sense, but we'll save it. It's one of those things. Just one of those things. They needed a new look. Is what they needed.
They needed a new look.
All right. Well, Bubbawheat, tell everybody about your podcast and where they can tune in and find you out there.
Sure. My main podcast right now is still It's Time to Rewind as of recording. And I believe whenever this comes out, I'll still be releasing our 5th season, which is covering Memento, one scene at a time for 45 episodes. I believe we will have the episode out where we were able to have an interview with Stephen Tobolowsky, who plays Sammy Jenkins. That is an incredible episode. I'm really looking forward to release that. And then I also have an upcoming project that's coming out this October, and that's Fight Club Minutes, which that's a more traditional movies by minutes. It's 3 episodes a week going through Fight Club 1 minute at a time. And I have a co-host, Lance Stanford, and, you know, we're a few weeks into recording already, and it's a lot of fun too. And that's, it's a lot of work. And I'm also simultaneously doing like kind of a lower key season for It's Time to Rewind, covering, I feel like it's Memento's sister movie, 50 First Dates. So that's,
nice.
To keep the It's Time to Rewind feed going, because Fight Club Minute's going to be on its own feed.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we'll have links in the show notes for the shows that are current. So check those out, everybody. Remember, if you're not seeing the links in your show notes, just go to the website, marvelmovieminute.com. You can check everything out there. Bubbawheat, thanks again so much. We'll be back tomorrow with, again, with the Marvelous Tay for minute 132. So, Pete, thanks as always.
Thank you, Andy. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about a car.
Oh, yes, you are. Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Message to the World by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.